Watch closely. This right here is the exact moment Kody Brown stopped caring about his wives, his kids, and when the entire family began to unravel. We've got a lot to dig into today, so let's not waste a second. Let's dive right into it. Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Anya, and welcome back to Reality Recap. We're talking about Season 15, Episode 4, a moment that truly feels like the turning point when Cody gave up on his family. Now, aside from his poor decisions, it's understandable to a certain extent. Dealing with 4 wives is no picnic. Right from the get-go, it was apparent Cody was in over his head. On billboard advertisements and handgun sales alone, supporting 18 children and 4 wives. Not without a deal for a TV show. Once they moved to Vegas, it became more and more apparent Cody was drifting away from his first 3 wives. He played along for the show, and let's be real, it was successful. Now that the show is approaching its 20th season, the wear and tear of managing 4 wives and almost 20 children is no joke. Cody just continued adding more to the pile, thinking that one day he'd find bliss. And he did, with Robyn. What's tragic is that to this day, he hasn't owned up to that. Instead, he continues to position himself as the victim. An honest man would have accepted the show's money in the early days, stabilized his finances, and done things off camera in a dignified manner. But Cody was addicted to money. He continued the deception just to keep up appearances. Instead of honesty, he used passive-aggressive manipulation, likely expecting the wives to be the ones who left, so he wouldn't have to be the villain. But that strategy totally blew up in his face. When the truth came out, it was evident. If the wives would leave, he'd lose his priesthood and the spiritual standing that went with it. He wanted them to remain, but also wanted them to accept that their marriages were finished. Pure selfishness. It's also becoming clear that Cody ceased to believe in the faith itself. Consider his child getting baptized outside of the religion. That's a direct contrast to the principles he previously professed. Had he really believed, he would have tried harder to do his part. At the same time, Robyn continued to hold on to polygamy, and Cody evidently preferred monogamy. So, the farce went on. Even if he wanted monogamy with Robyn, he owed the first 3 wives honesty. Instead of leading them on and treating them badly, he should have been honest. Cody's marriage to multiple women was done in part to prove something to his dad, and done in part to make himself feel like some sort of stud. But it was doomed from the beginning. Nobody made him do it. He was an adult man making these decisions. He drained his wives emotionally and financially and used his anger towards them as a justification for not paying attention to his children. The day the One Big House scheme was shot down was the beginning of Cody's downfall. It was the first major family decision that didn't turn out his way. Christine's adamant refusal probably saved them from a catastrophe, but for Cody, it wounded his ego, and he's been sulking ever since. That house wasn't unity. It was power. It was his means of establishing that he was the alpha in their neighborhood. Without it, Cody lost control. Prior to Robyn, the first 3 wives had their thing, but Cody's infatuation with Robyn destroyed it all. In all honesty, as soon as he met Robyn, he was finished with the others, but he continued to play otherwise for years. Now that he's living the life of a monogamist, he's blaming everybody but himself for the downfall of the family. He manipulated his wives against one another while posing as a devoted family man, and then abandoned 3 women and children when things got complicated. He caused this mess, but won't own up to it. The truth is, Cody was never cut out for polygamy, not monogamy, not even fatherhood, not in any sense or sense of responsibility. But the actual breaking point wasn't necessarily the one-house proposal collapsing. It was Cody's failure to establish individual relationships with his children, independent of his affections for their mothers. That's where he really fell short. and it's something that's difficult to forgive. And now, let's discuss what they don't really want you to know about Kody and Robyn's perfect marriage, the secrets that might rewrite the whole story. There's been enough wondering about the timeline of Kody and Robyn's relationship, namely, whether things became physical before they actually got married. Their engagement photos and body language are telling a tale that's a little too tight for a couple who hadn't yet wed. Kody has gotten visibly upset and evasive whenever anyone brings up the subject of premarital relations, which certainly raises a brow. During that time that he was taking those long drives to be with Robyn prior to her relocating to Utah, where was he sleeping anyway? Did he always take Maddie, Mykelti, and Aspen with him? Or was that merely a fig leaf? They probably did spend some private time together. Some even imagine that Kody's retired sports car became their private haven. It's also quite possible then the fact that Kody took his older daughters with him as chaperones when he visited Robyn is given a completely different interpretation. Apparently, they were there to maintain propriety, to keep an eye on Kody and Robyn and ensure no boundaries were crossed. That theory gives Robyn's notorious purity lectures a whole different spin. Consider it. Robyn sermonizing about purity while potentially having premarital sex with Kody? Her sermon had already seemed awkward, but giving it in front of young children and teens, including boys, seemed even more tone-deaf. The timing and content were bad enough on their own, but taping it for television? That was just a recipe for disaster. If the older kids knew, or even suspected, about Robyn and Kody's intimacy, those speeches are outright hypocritical. Let's look at the timeline surrounding Solomon's birth. He's about 18 months younger than Truly, who was born just weeks before Robyn and Kody officially got married. The wedding reception happened in May, and Solomon was born that October. That means he was likely conceived during the family's January 2011 vacation, after the wedding, technically. But the closeness leading up to that suggests they may have already been spiritually bonded well before anything official. Some of the fans think Kody might have gone ahead and done a spiritual sealing prior to the TV wedding even taking place, asserting himself as the spiritual authority. Their actions didn't speak of a couple waiting until marriage. Robyn even suggested that the engagement kiss was sufficient to seal the pact in her thoughts, as though she already thought of them as wed from then on. It would not be surprising if the original wives and elder children knew, or at least highly suspected, about the hasty closeness. That daughters were taken along as escorts is telling. Obviously, something needed to be managed. The jealousy and control needs during Robyn's courtship were not subtle. And then there's Kody's history. He has owned up to premarital sex with a college girlfriend. Yet now, in the case of Robyn, he becomes defensive and even angry when asked about it. The inconsistency is obvious. It raises even more questions about purity narrative Robyn and Kody have attempted to sell, and what really went on with their timeline. This secrecy and selective sharing still influence the interactions between Kody, the first wives, and their kids. The emotional hurt goes deep. And just when we thought Robyn couldn't do worse, she crosses the line again. Here's why her newest main family assertion could be her worst transgression yet. So get this. Robyn just suggested the other wives were too concerned with the kids who no longer live at home, and her kids, who all remain under her roof, should be the priority. Yes, she said that. I rewound the footage twice to ensure I wasn't dreaming it. Absolutely disgusting. During the COVID lockdown, Christine and Janelle were in North Carolina and Salt Lake City, since Kody had opted to quarantine with Robyn, the favorite wife. None of the other wives or their children were invited, and yet Robyn had the audacity to call her home the main family. She actually thinks that since Kody is there, Her house is the epicenter for everyone else. It's ridiculous. And truly, I can hardly wait for the day that her kids do move out, when it's only Robyn and Cody sitting there in that huge house by themselves. She won't have anyone left to dominate. She will have to sit with the outcome of her actions. But here's the thing. I don't even think her kids are being raised to be independent. If raising children is equipping them for actual life, Robyn is failing. If her grown-up daughters can't even pick out their own outfits by themselves, how are they ever going to be able to fend for themselves? It's not even Robyn getting in on the parenting half the time. That's the nanny's responsibility. While Robyn's off doing her online shopping and getting hung up about doll clothes. Perhaps that's why they had to have such a ginormous house, to accommodate all her shopping sprees and craft endeavors. Honestly, it makes you wonder, will her kids ever go away? It feels like she doesn't want them to. She's holding on to them and to Cody, desperately. She's made her identity based on being the center of this little bubble. But consider this. What if Cody suddenly decided he wanted more children with a new, younger wife? Some karmic revenge for all Robyn's attempted control. But come on. Cody appears far too set in his ways, too spoiled by Robyn and the round-the-clock attention of her children, to ever leave. This whole family arrangement, it's a disaster. Cody has biological grandchildren who hardly know him, and Christine's new husband is already being referred to as Grandpa. Cody, on the other hand, is fixated on his tenders, his young daughters who don't curse, drink, or get tattoos. You know, the ones who listen, like their mother. And Cody? He loves strutting around with them, proud of how good they behave. Let's not forget, too, when Robyn relocated the entire family to Flagstaff just so her son could attend college there. That was never about anyone else. It was always about keeping her child nearby. Her message couldn't be more blunt. Stay home. Stay relevant. She even had the guts to say that mothers quit parenting when their children turn 18. Really? Because she's the one who is still grasping for dear life. She hugs her children like they're her emotional support animals. Robyn has always emitted that evil stepmom vibe, only concerned with her own kids, and only allowing the others to exist if they're fawning over her. She continues to try to be the center of the family, but everyone else? They've upgraded. Most of them are doing just great without Robyn and Cody's ongoing chaos. So go ahead, Robyn. Keep declaring your house the main family. Once your kids finally fly the nest, you'll be stuck in that giant house with nothing but regrets and a needy husband who thinks you're the center of his universe. Speaking of self-centered behavior, get ready for Cody's most cringe-worthy narcissist moment yet. He somehow managed to make Aurora's baptism revolve around him, and it was painfully obvious. The moment Aurora asked for baptism, Cody spun it into an emotional monologue about his relationship with God. Cue the crocodile tears. Only after all that did he mention Aurora, briefly. Classic Cody. It truly feels like Robyn has instructed her children to invite Cody to activities that he would never even bother with, just so he can steal the limelight. The other mothers, on the other hand, they allow their children to make their own decisions. Get out. Cody is living for the limelight. Remember when he claimed he wanted to go to Christine's wedding solely so he could outdance her new groom? In his dream world, he'd be the star of the show. But in real life, he'd be more like that gangly Duke of Weselton from Frozen. He's that sure everybody in the world is watching him. And Aurora's baptism, why not have her mother perform it? Easy. In AUB, LDS, FLDS, and other such sects, females don't hold the priesthood. Official rites are performed by men only. So, of course, Aurora went to her father, even though he knows nothing about what this new church believes. He's a man, and that is all it takes in those circles. Ironically, the church Aurora did choose does permit women in ministry, just not at the highest levels of leadership. Reminds me of that one situation where a woman was going to perform a wedding at an LDS meeting house. The The bishop initially approved it until he caught on to the fact the officiant was a woman. He canceled it, the replacement botched the ceremony, and the woman ended up improvising out in the parking lot. No surprise there, official religious authority still goes to men. So, yeah, Cody was allowed to join in the ceremony, on account of nothing to do with his beliefs, but merely because he's a man. Robyn, meanwhile, wearing a drenched white shirt? Not exactly high-value woman material. The entire scene was as cringy and try-hard as that infamous earring scene. All forced. Even Cody questioned aloud if they would be asking him about his work in the church, like he was holding out for someone to pass him the mic so he could take center stage. Sorry to inform you, Cody, but nobody came for you. This was Aurora's time, not some other Cody show. Nevertheless, he made it a Cody show, as always. Weddings, surgeries, pandemics, births, he manages to find a way to make all things revolve around him. Aurora was fidgety, like she was attempting to please her dad while coping with the burden of two very narcissistic parents. In the end, that baptism wasn't a genuine family moment. It was another scripted scene for television. When Cody entered that church, it was as if the walls themselves complained. Everything must serve him, or he doesn't care. So naturally, he made Aurora's baptism all about him. The only genuine question now is, when has he ever not? And hold on tight, the baptism bash is on the way. Because you know Cody will somehow manage to exploit it as another opportunity to pull out his infamous dance moves and hijack the limelight one more time. They claim every good show requires a villain. And what if that bad guy destroyed everything and managed to keep it all alive somehow? Let's discuss the woman of the hour, Robyn. She stunned many people when she claimed she had a huge part in the family's beginnings. But come on. After considering this, her actual contribution was largely simply not being around. Her expression is always just a bit too put together, sweet, reserved, and as if she's making a big effort not to let go. Honestly, most of the time she appears as if she either requires an enema or already has one in. Now, when it comes to what Robyn actually brought to the family, chaos. The exact kind of messy energy reality TV feeds on: division, drama, debt, and deception. Without her stirring that pot, Sister Wives probably would have faded away like every other short-lived polygamy show. But toss in a full-blown villain and her ride-or-die sidekick? Suddenly, you've got TV gold. Let's not forget, she brought huge financial burdens, debt that ultimately fell on one of the original wives. But what Robyn's actually quite skilled at? Speaking fluent Cody. She's essentially his human translator and has been breaking down his gibberish for years. Communication in that house had to have been a circus before she arrived. And of course, how could we overlook her now notorious dance moves? Surely some kind of contribution, albeit not one that anyone invited. In a macabre sort of way, Robyn did contribute to the family's explosion, which, bizarrely, resulted in development for some. A couple of the family members did move on and create improved lives, although the actual price was paid by the children. But that's a complete heartbreak. We don't even get time to unload here. Early in her marriage, Robyn appeared to believe that everyone would automatically be able to see how much she brought to the table. Spoiler, they didn't. Rather, we had her constant cap-in-hand behavior. More accurately, begging, really. And then there's the doll clothes. Of course, the shining reviews she posted for her own Etsy products, all while not exactly being warm to the sister wives or their children. But perhaps dolls are simpler. They don't fight or challenge her authority. Her wee little shop and its abrupt radio silence? That enigma's only increased due to how quickly it was buried. Pure censorship move, which just makes everyone more interested. Honestly, perhaps Robyn's best contribution to the family was keeping Cody sequestered in her part of the house. At least that saved everyone else from his tantrums and pity party escapades. And don't forget, her most quantifiable legacy? The pile of divorce debt she brought with her when she came on board with the family. A true gift that keeps on giving. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. And, hey, don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you're new here. I'll catch you in the next video. Stay safe, and lots of love to all of you.